The 2025 Canadian Premier League playoffs kick off this Wednesday, October 22nd, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Atlantic time, because it is in Halifax. That's right. The ascent begins with the knockout match between the Halifax Wanderers and York United, fourth versus fifth, for a chance to play third place on Sunday. Boys, this is how the playoffs have started the last couple of years. This game is always entertaining. The York has been involved in all of them so far. They lost the first one in 2023 to Pacific FC on a very late winner in that game. Last year, they hosted Pacific, won that one 2-0, which was a better performance from the Nine Stripes, and they needed kind of a late, I guess, insurance goal from Moba Booley to make sure that they were advancing. These games are dramatic. They are fiery. They are aggressive. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Mitch, maybe we'll start with kind of your gut feeling about these two teams heading into this game. Both sides had an opportunity to not play in this game over the weekend. There's no denying that neither team wanted to play in the midweek game. They both wanted to come third. But, Halifax lost to Atletico Ottawa at home. York lost to Forge FC. Neither team able to climb the table at all during the outcome. So here we go. We got a home game in Halifax, who are obviously very excited for that. York kind of know the gauntlet they have to run. So maybe what's your initial thought on seeing that this is going to be how we open the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't think either side obviously will be particularly happy in how the final season or how the final week of the season went. But I think if you're Halifax, it's that little bit easier to turn the page just in the fact that, okay, we still get to start the playoffs at home. It's a somewhat similar gauntlet. We knew we were going to have to run multiple rounds here. We knew they were going to be on the road. So it's a similar task to what they had to start with. And that home playoff game is crucial. We talked about it all year, how big of an advantage that's going to be. York have scored just 2 goals in their past 6 away matches. They haven't won on the road since July. So this is a big advantage for Halifax. But like you said, these games have always been incredibly close. Like the first one, as you mentioned, decided incredibly late in the final minutes. Moba Booley scored, I think, in stoppage time last year for York to win, to make it 2-0 to kind of put that game to bed with Pacific pushing. So I think it's going to be incredibly close. 1 point in the end separating these two sides all season. And I think they've had different stages where it looked like York was going to be that team to rise up and maybe move up a little higher up the standings. Halifax had some great runs, particularly when they could put a couple of consecutive home games together and those sorts of things, and were pretty dominant at home. So it's going to be incredibly tight. It's going to be close, and it's exactly what you want this time of year is, two clubs that their season really comes down to this, right? Like how we perceive how this year was for both clubs is largely going to be based on the result of this match. And that's incredibly exciting as we go into Wednesday.
That's absolutely right. I mean, your season is a success or it isn't, probably based on the result of this game, which is a one-off knockout match in Halifax. Just between these sides this year, Halifax have had the slight edge. They've won 2. York have won 1. They have a draw. Not the last time that York went to Halifax, but the time before that, Mari Eustachio has said that they didn't show up because of the 4-0 Halifax win. So certainly it's been difficult for York to play at the Wanderers grounds. They haven't actually won there since 2023. They've won there 4 times in their history, but it has been a while. AGR, will come to you here. Maybe we'll start with Halifax, though. We know that they've got some guys back recently. Thiago Coimbra played 83 minutes on Saturday, which is a huge deal for them. But if the Wanderers are going to win this game and get to Sunday's semifinal qualifier against Cavalry, who's going to be the story? Who are the heroes going to have to be for them?
Yeah, I think for them, there's going to be 2 big ones, and the rest, I mean, you kind of know the 2 big ones, the headliners, so to speak. It's up front, Thiago Coimbra. This team kind of has gone with him this year when he's been on. They've been scoring goals for fun. They've had those 3-4-0 results, but when he's not around or when he's not on, it's pretty, it's not always to the level they would like. So can Coimbra be the guy that he's been this year? He's really hit a level, like he's hit that a level of top CPL striker. Well, playoffs are where you can really prove that, right? Like last year, Tobias Warszewski, the perfect example. He had a great regular season, but he cemented a fantastic season by going supernova in the playoffs. Can Coimbra do that? Yeah. And at the other end, Thomas Meyer-Jaguar. Halifax has a guy that has gone through the playoffs and lifted a trophy before, that has been a rock in the playoffs so many times for Pacific. For Halifax, I mean, their lone playoff appearance to date, at least in a knockout environment, was, they hosted Pacific, and there was pressure because they'd finished third and they tied for second, and Pacific came in and just kind of grinded their way out of there and left. And Halifax were almost shocked, like, oh, okay, that's playoff soccer. We weren't ready. Having a guy like Thomas Meyer-Jaguar, he knows playoff soccer. He kind of embodies it, the way he'll throw himself on the line. So he's going to have to be a big leader. And from there, there's a lot of talent in between the boxes that can help them. Johnston, Caligari, get those guys involved, get them funneling the ball forward. But really, it feels like TMG and Coimbra need to steal the show.
Yeah. CPL champion, TMG. Certainly a experienced player in these kinds of games. I'll also say that I think Sean Rea is a player who has the ability to be a game changer in this kind of environment. Certainly, I think the most positive thing is we saw him step up when Coimbra was out, especially that game in Winnipeg where the Wanderers had to win. And, that game is the reason that they're hosting this game. We saw him step up and kind of help lead that attack. But Mitch, let's do York here a little bit. That loss in Hamilton was frustrating. Really, really just not a good performance from them. That said, they were missing Orlando Boteo at left back, Massimo Ferrin at left wing, and arguably in this situation, Leo Lopez, the most important to this loss, because they were just completely missing that that creativity in midfield, which he provides. Now, Mauro Eustachio has said Botello and Ferrin are almost certainly good to go for Wednesday. They had minor knocks. They chose to keep them out of this game, knowing they had to play midweek, almost 90% likelihood anyway. Lopez will come down to a decision closer to the game, but also not a huge concern for Eustachio, so he could also be available. But anyway, Mitch, all that said, same question to you. Who is going to have to be the one that steps up for York if they are to win this game on Wednesday? Who is the story going to be?
I think you got to go right up the spine for this York United team. And, that clearly starts at the back with Frank Stirring, who's been, on his day, one of the best defenders in the Canadian Premier League. Just so important to the organization back there, to stepping up in those moments and cutting out chances. So I think he's going to have to be absolutely brilliant. In midfield, Kembo Kabato is a player who has done really well, I think, against this Halifax midfield. And I think a lot of this game could come down to, how the two sides are able to win that midfield battle and progress through the middle of the park, as it always kind of does when any two teams meet. But Kabato has had some of his best performances all year, I think, against the Halifax Wanderers. And I think he's going to have to be big. And then you always need someone to step up and score those goals. And obviously Julian Altobelli is not coming into the playoffs in his best form, but he's the guy for York United, that if they can have someone to come up huge and have a big performance offensively, it's got to be Altobelli. But we're seeing him get maybe a little bit closer to that player that was at the start of the season in terms of the positions he's getting into. But I think that he's going to be the one that's going to be vital. And, if he can get a goal or two, then York are in a great position, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Kembo Kabato, by the way, just quickly have to shout out producer Benedict Rhodes, who called him last night the Ernie Clement of the CPL, because I just love that. But Kembo has been he's really been a dog for York over the last few months of the season. I think the Pacific draw 2 weeks ago, obviously not a good result for York, but Kabato was really the player that picked them up off the floor and got them at least a point out of that game. But yeah, this is going to be a very close game between these sides. It's about as tight as it gets in terms of stats, in terms of, talent on both sides. There's pressure on both sides. Arguably maybe a little more pressure on Halifax and Patrice Geyser, who have maybe been working with this club a little bit longer. little bit more ambitious in preseason comments about this team, and obviously playing at home. And this is their one opportunity to play at home before either of these teams goes to Calgary on Sunday night. And we will get to that later in the week. But just to remind you all, here's another look at the playoff bracket, the final and official playoff bracket, now that we have the full standings. Obviously, we know Forge and Ottawa will play each other on Sunday in the championship semifinal. Halifax and York, though, is how we start on Wednesday night, winner of which plays Cavalry on Sunday night. That one's going to be at 6 o'clock Eastern time. I believe that's going to be 4 local time in Alberta. And then the winner of that 3 versus either 4 or 5 game goes to play whichever team of Forge and Atletico Ottawa loses, while the winner of that 1-2 championship semifinal goes directly to the CPL final, which we can confirm whether it's in Forge in Hamilton or Ottawa will be Sunday, November 9th. It's all going to be on OneSoccer. It's all going to be on TSN. It's going to be a lot of fun. Do not miss the CPL playoffs. Never a dull moment at this time of year in the Canadian Premier League. And we will be back with you later in the week to set up some of the more entertainment to come over the weekend. But until then, this has been the CPL Newsroom presented by Volkswagen. Thank you very much for watching.
Some waver, some fall, but not the North. Pressure doesn't break us, it builds us.